Hello, everybody, and welcome to our webinar today about the JobRouter release of the version 2024.1. I welcome everybody joining us in this webinar today, and I'm happy to have you all here and on board. We are starting in a different setup today since Romi's position as a product manager lead is to stay in the background, and my colleagues Nadine, Emmerich and Stefan Weimann and me are doing the presentation about the new release today. So thank you very much, Romy, for your trust, and I'm happy to welcome you all to this webinar today. What have we prepared for you? There are updates on the modern forms, or Forms 2.0, how it was formerly called. We have some information about the JobRouter app. We have some infos about the Git integration and what changed here. We have a new system action around the OpenAI AI function, and some information about JobStart and some technical changes. And I'm happy to present all that together with my colleagues Nadine, Emmerich and Stefan Weimann. My name is Bernhard Bachinger, and I'm not sharing the screen. Thank you for that information, because that should, of course, be running.
It's a good introduction, so no problem.
Yes. The introduction went also without the screen, so everything should be fine. And we go on with the information about the modern forms, and Nadine will take this part.
Thank you for introduction, and I will take the screen. Just a second, please. So hello, and thank you for your trust. And we'll start with the modern forms. We call it modern forms because you already know the classic forms. So we start on a process flowchart, and what's new is the designing of the forms, of course. So in the main menu, you will find the forms classic, you already know, and the forms modern. And the modern forms are right now only for public start steps, but this will change in between the year. So there will come more functionality, and we will start with a public start. And I will show you how to design with a modern form designer right now. So when you start with a public start step, and you will click, you make a double click, you can decide for the form legacy, the classic form, or form modern. When I choose the modern forms, I will switch to the forms overview and the pop-up for creating a new form. Creating a new form is so much more easier, and it looks really better. So I can start with the form's name, for example. I will say contact, and maybe the contact label will be also contact form for website, for example. And I give them a description. I will choose this again, website, HTTP, like this. So it's really easy to start a new form. I can give unload and submit script. I won't do that right now. And I can save my form. That's it. So it will start from the process flowchart, for example, go over the forms overview, create your form, and what you get after a few seconds is this workspace. That's a new workspace for forms for the modern forms. That's the workspace that we will call the element picker, for example. And what you see is we deliver already an area and section and the column space. So you can start creating a form with this simple couple of elements. And what I can do is pick one of the elements, move it over here in the column, and create your form. It's really easy. So what you see is we already have this identifiers and the labels. It's section 1, for example, and I will explain. We have the area, we have the section, and in between we have the columns with our elements. And with this already automatically generated section names and label names, you can start editing and creating forms without thinking about naming. And that's how you could create a simple form or more urgent form in this way. I will show you a form I already created before. It's the application form. I'll move to the forms overview, and in the forms overview, we have all our dialogues or our forms we already have created. And I have a search bar. I can search, for example, contact. I found my already created form, and you see the yellow bar and the gray bar. The yellow bar are forms that are already connected or already linked to a step. The gray ones are not. So that's already here the broken icon. And I have the opportunity to create a form on this side too. No? It's only an example. And when I go to the application, that's a form I already created. I can open this one, and that's a huge form. So it's for application, and I have already added this form with a couple of these dialogues. They're not all of the dialogues we have in the classic form right now, but we will increase and we will develop this year more functionality, more from the form elements to design the forms. So you see we have, for example, the radio elements, and what changed to the classic forms is creating an element will be much more easier. When I took the radio, for example, and put it in there, the radio element it's possible to connect it with a list. You already know lists. And right now, when I put a radio element in my workspace, in my form, I get an example, I get a name, the label name, of course, and the information, there's no list selected. And I can connect my radios to a list I have already created the way you know how it works. So that's much more easier. And what else do I have? It's of course, it's easier to create a form by itself, but I also have the opportunity to have a look. How will it look on a desktop mode? And how will it look on a tablet mode? Or for example, on a smartphone. So we have an integrated simulator in the Forms Designer. And I can move back to work with my form again. So I will delete this one. I don't need this one. And I also can add, for example, properties like required, read-only, you only notice staff, on-change, and on-click elements. In the manual, we describe which scripts you can use already with the modern forms. They are not all included right now, but we will this year develop much more. We also have the opportunity to go to the scripts, or we have the opportunity to simulate our forms we have created in there. So it will be much easier to create forms for you as process designer. And right now it's for the public start step, but in the year we will create it for more steps and with more elements than those you find right now and more functionality. That's from my side, Bernhard. If you want to, you can show the presentation again, would be nice.
Yes, I will do that. So you need to stop your
I will. Thank you.
Presentation, and I start mine, and we start with a short summary of the information about the modern forms. And it should be running.
So thank you. So what's new? New appearance. Of course, you've seen it. Drag and drop form designer. It's much more easier to design a form. The responsive forms and the integrated simulator for tablet and smartphone view. Automatic generated ideas and identifiers. naming for the elements, the area, the section, and the columns, and the new element, the radio group, where you can create really fast radio buttons with the connected list. Right now, it's already mentioned, public user steps, there it is implemented, and not all form elements and functions are implemented yet, but they will come this year. Thank you, Bernhard.
Perfect. And the next slide is the plan for this year around about the modern forms.
Implementation of normal user steps, implementation of further form elements, events, and scripts, of course, expansion of form elements properties, expansion of JavaScript API, and support of subtables. Thank you.
Perfect. And we switch to all the new information about the JobRouter app. So it's your part again.
Yeah, thank you. What's going on? So, and again, please start. I don't have a live demonstration right now, but I will introduce what's new. I will start from the bottom. We have a couple of bug fixes in there. We have an upgrade to Angular 12, to Capacitor 5, fixed substitution requests, integration of imprint and privacy policy, maybe your own privacy policy, and the multi-upload in subtables automatically creates new table rows. So that's what I wanted to show you. I don't have a live demonstration, but we have a video, and I have Bernhard to start and stop the video in between. Thank you for that, Bernhard.
No problem. You're welcome.
So what we have is a step I got. It's a mobile subtable playground. Doesn't matter, for an inspection. So if you would please start the video. So, and stop, please. What I built is a little damage protocol, for example. So what I wanted to do is, maybe you have a car, there's an accident, or maybe you have to inspect a building. And when you go through the building, I want to protocol the damages, for example, in the rooms. And if I want to, I would like to take photos. And that's what I try to show you with this little form. It's a protocol form, thanks, Bernhard. And I will choose the first step, the customer. Could be some. I choose a customer, I type in the room where I am, and now I want to upload more than one photo, and that's new. I want to add more than one photo and create more than one row in a subtable. And what's done right now, it's
sorry, it took a while it started from the beginning, so that's where we were.
No problem. So I choose from my device the photos I want to upload. I upload them, and with each photo, the app will create one row. And when I go back to the form, you can see the photo protocol in there, and I have one row per photo. I can add a note, a date, a signature, for example, and I can send my form to the next step. So what's new? It's uploading more than one photo and creating rows per photo. I can add more information in a row, for example, naming of the photo or something else. And when I send it, the reviewer, for example, will see all uploaded photos in between the app. That's new. That's a new multi-upload and subtables. I hope you like it, and I would be really glad if you have any processes or any steps you can send me as example. Would be great. That's from my side. Thank you.
Not finished yet.
No, not finished yet. It's only with a multi-upload.
Exactly. There's a little bit more to come this year, so just give us an update on the plans for 2024 for the JobRouter app.
I would like to. It's a pleasure. So what we have for 2024 is biometric authentication for the local configuration by the user. You can configure the biometric authentication for your device. We have the global configuration by the admins, and we have the configuration based on the process step by the process designer, for example. We have two-factor authentication, and what's also new is the process inboxes. the dark mode, and further configuration options for the file upload. That's planned for 2024, and we are already working on the biometric on the process inboxes. So that's it.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we switch to Stefan and everything around about the Git integration. Just one information, by the way, you can all use the question and answers area of the Zoom meeting. So we can answer your question there, or if it's easier for you, you can also put it in the chat. We are following up on that in the end of the webinar. And we go to Stefan, and I think he takes the screen sharing himself.
Yes, thank you very much, Bernhard. Hello and welcome everybody from my side as well. Thank you, Nadine. It was her debut for the release webinar presentation, so I think she did a very good job. And thank you very much. And I will take over, and I have a few things in store for you. First of all, I will show the Git integration live, as well as an OpenAI system activity or process. I will show you, not the system activity itself. And later on, at the very end, I will tell you something a little bit about the technical changes we implemented for 2024.1. So let's start right away. And you should now see my screen, I hope.
Yes, it's working.
Thank you very much. And we start with the Git integration. The Git integration was introduced in 2023.1 with the connection to GitHub repositories. Since then, we put a lot of work into the further development of the Git integration to, on the one hand, implement the handling a little bit easier for you guys, as well as more supported Git repositories. So first of all, I want to show you the quality of life features we implemented in here, like the linked repositories overview. It's a centralized overview of all the connections you have from JobRouter processes to a Git repository. In the past, you would need to go into every single process and look if there is a connection and then edit or deactivate or activate it. Now you have the possibility to have a centralized overview of the whole connections, and you are able to, on the one hand, edit existing ones with an unlinking functionality, which is also new, as well as deleting if it's unlinked. So this button activates as soon as I unlink this repository. But to demonstrate you how it works pretty much the same as before. When you do it in a process property, you can select a process, you can select the process version, an existing Git connection, which needs to be already configured in the system. You can connect it with a existing repository. And now, which is also new, is you are able to select a development branch. I won't go too much into technical details, but within a code version control system, like Git is, you are able to have multiple development branches you can work on. And usually the main branch or master branch in older Git repository versions is used to accumulate all the developed code, kind of a release branch, basically. And you can have also like development branches, feature branches, bug branches. Doesn't matter. There's like a lot of possibilities in here. But since you might have different branches to work with, you are able to now select the branch you want to work with. After that, you can link this process with the Git repository. Now in the background, what happens is that we send all the process assets like PHP functions, JavaScript functions, the contents of the data and functions directory of the process to be able to fetch from the Git repository. As in the past, as soon as you change some code in the Git repository in the main branch, then the changes will get posted to the JobRouter process to be able to be used. Furthermore, what we also did for 2024.1, so this was the first feature to have a centralized overview and configuration possibility for the repository links. you can now also connect not only to GitHub, but GitLab and Azure DevOps since 2024.1. We also back merged the GitLab possibility into 2023.1, but you need to be on one of the further patches than 2023.1.0. If you are on the current version, which is 2023.1.11 or 12, then you will be able to connect to GitLab as well. But if you're updating to 2024.1, you will have it definitely. All right. As before, nothing changed on this configuration overview. You're free to use the Git provider you have access to, and don't forget to create your personal access token to activate this link. If you're not familiar on how to generate those, we have in our manual help links, for an example for GitHub, how to create those personal access tokens. All right, that's for now for the Git integration. We now switch to a completely different topic. We're talking about AI. We at JobRouter are working with AI and experimenting with AI since a couple of months. We have a few ideas a lot of ideas regarding for example, for process designing and so on, but nothing to work with right now. What we did so far is that we implemented an OpenAI system activity. The OpenAI system activity connects JobRouter with the OpenAI API. Little tongue breaker here. So you are able to use the system activity within any process you want to. And for example, you can use this to generate text, translate some text, or write some text in a specific role, as I will demonstrate you right now. So we have here a very simple process. I'm sorry, I didn't translate the labels here, but the text is the more important one. So, hey, I want you to greet all the webinar attendees for today's webinar as a pirate, for example. And after a few seconds, when we called the OpenAI API, we will receive an answer, hopefully written as a pirate. In the background, you are able to also modify your request to OpenAI with if you're familiar with OpenAI, with some parameters you can set for this API. And when it's successful, you will get the response you desire. As I've said, you could use this as a translation possibility to generate some text in a specific role, or doing some text modifications from existing stuff. All right, that's so far for the demonstration. If you want to use this system activity, every system, every license gets this one enabled as soon as you update to 2024.1. There's no license fees behind this. Feel free to use it. You just need to have an OpenAI account and generate an API key within your OpenAI organization, and then you can set it up within JobRouter within the module overview. As you can see, you just need to reference the API key, hit the test button. If it's okay, you can use the system activity and you're good to go. That's so far for my live presentation part. I will try to share my screen once again. In the last webinar, it didn't work out, but I hope it works out right now. This looks much better.
No, not yet completely.
I need to switch the...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Now it's perfect.
Ooh. All right. I have another update coming up for our existing module JobStart. We added a Graph API support for mailboxes, for inboxes. And how it works is you're already familiar with the account type IMAP or POP3, which are the preferred way to use email accounts. Definitely, the Microsoft Graph API possibility is now for use cases where the administrators or the IT department doesn't want to open up the IMAP and POP3 possibility for the Azure email accounts. This only applies for M365 accounts. So anybody else is not affected by this or cannot use this function basically. But anyway, as long as you're not using Azure or M365 as an email provider, the preferred way anyway would be using IMAP and POP3. Anyway, you are able to use this, and it works as intended as you would use IMAP or POP3. You can still enter username and password. You can enter an alternative mailbox which the user has access to. You can also edit the client ID and the tenant ID if it's an Azure organization, or if it's a Deviant or another Azure organization, you can still link to those. The SSL options are deactivated just because using Microsoft Graph API only works with SSL. We might do a little UX part in here where we by default activate those checkboxes since you are not able to manipulate them via the UI. Authorizations is not the right translation. I will change that to later on. The permissions for using Microsoft Graph API must be assigned in the Azure portal by your administrator. So this function can be used with JobRouter. And our recommendation, recommendation is to use IMAP and POP3 if available. Because those protocols are much better and well tested in business environments. Of course, Microsoft Graph API works as well. Definitely, we just had the request for this since IMAP and POP3 were not enabled for a specific group of customers. All right. So far, so good. Let's switch from the functions presentation to the technical changes we deliver with 2024.1. First of all, we updated .NET. We updated our services to .NET 8.0, the new LTS release from .NET. It comes automatically with the update of the JobRouter services, so you don't need to think of anything. As soon as you update or install the new versions, the new JobRouter services of JobRouter services, the .NET version will get installed automatically as a prerequisite. The only thing you would need to think about if you have self-implemented .NET system activities. If you have those system activities, you would need to update them by yourself first to ensure that those system activities still work. If you have those system activities still in the older version, which is .NET 6, they might work, but the recommendation is to have an update of those so we can ensure that they work also with the new JobRouter version. For the PHP part, we didn't change anything so far. So if you are already on a 2023.x release, you don't need to update PHP 8 or PHP at all. We are currently working on a PHP 8.2 support, which will be released within the 2024 release, which means as soon as you are on a 2024 release, you are working right now with PHP 8.1, and somewhere during the year, you will have access to PHP 8.2 files for the same version of 2024, and you can update the PHP version without updating JobRouter necessarily. So a very smooth update possibility in here, as soon as PHP 8.2 will be available for JobRouter, you will get informed via our channels. All right. We are working already since a few months for some technology updates in the background, as for example the Symfony changes. The Symfony changes we did in the background have an effect on some use cases where some developers were using static JobRouter classes, and those JobRouter classes or JobRouter classes, those static functions in JobRouter classes cannot be called anymore directly. This will have an effect on implemented functions like widgets, external PHP functions, which are using those static functions. Everybody who used the API in the past is safe, and only the API. Every static function call will not work anymore. But to cover those who use those and missing some functionality with 2024.1, we will provide an SDK to cover those calls. So you are able to call them via an API, an additional API call, so you're safe with your current functionalities. We are working with our professional services department, what is commonly used in the past for those projects. But feel free to send us a message what kind of static JobRouter functions you used, so we are able to also add them to the SDK. All right, that's so far from my side. Thank you very much for hearing me out and listening to the new features, and I will hand over to Bernhard.
I think you can keep the presentation because
Sure.
it's only one slide left. We want to thank you all for your attention. Thank you, colleagues, for your perfect presentations. Obviously, you answered pretty much all questions right within your own presentation. There is only one question left, and perhaps a few more coming up in the chat or in the question and answers panel now. But at the moment, there is only the one question about the Git integration and how it relates to the process versioning. So Stefan, I would say that's something for you to answer.
Yes. So the question was how to use Git relates to process versioning. So as I will simply switch to my browser in the presentation since I'm still presenting. So we have the opportunity to look into this, and we still have some time left. So as soon as you link a process with a Git repository, you need to select a specific version, which means as soon as you create a second version of this process, this link doesn't work for the second version of the process. It only works for the first version of the process, since this is specifically linked to the Git repository. So if you want to update or create a new process version, you would need to also link the new version to the repository. Currently, it's not possible to select the same repository a second time. We are working on this, so you are able to have multiple processes for a single repository, which points to different branches. I hope I could draw the picture in your imagination a little bit. So you will have, for example, the goal would be to have a single process and a single repository which are linked, and the branches are linked to specific versions of this process. This is something we're currently brainstorming about, how we can create this. But right now, for now, you can only link a repository to a single process version. All right. Perfect. I hope I answered this question correctly and you understood everything what I meant. If not, please let us know.
And there is one more question in the chat that is about the modern forms, and using this feature will modify the naming and structure of JobRouter HTML elements like subtable views, text boxes, and others. Nadine, that's for you to answer.
That's my one. Yes, we changed the structure behind. So we changed or we switched to Angular. So in the background, the HTML will change, and that's it for right now. But there will be a migration plan for migrating the classic to the modern forms, if that's the question behind. And there are two more questions, Bernhard, and I would like to go over to the JobRouter again, to the demonstration. So I would share the screen if you...
Sure.
So,
please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So that's it. So here we go. I'll close them. One question was, how would it look like for the user, for the end user? And that's the simulation mode. So I go over here. That's my application. Maybe you've already seen when I started designing. Of course, we have a modern design, modern forms. And right now I have to switch back. I have to go these little steps for run simulation. And that's the simulation for the user, how it would look like for the user. And you can see it in the designing process. I showed you the simulation mode for desktop, tablet, and mobile. And that's how it would look like when I go over here, and how it would look like when the user would fill out the forms I have created. That's the new forms. And there was another question about how could I design? Are there possibilities for nesting rows? Right now, I created this one. It's more like this. You have the possibilities to edit areas, sections, and columns, and that's it right now. So I can put 2 sections in one area. I can put columns and sections, and that's the possibilities I have at the moment. Doesn't mean that we could build more in there, but that's it, how we could deliver with the next LTS. If you have further ideas, please use the feature portal. So if you see anything where you would say, oh, it would be great if I could build it like this way, or if I could have one more element or functionality, please use the feature portal and the voting in there. So that's what I wanted to show you. And I will stop screen sharing right now.
Perfect. Thank you, Nadine.
Okay.
There came one more question about the Git repository and the option to link local GitLab instances. Stefan.
Yes. Short answer, yes, you can use it. The little bit longer answer is as soon as you configure a new Git repository, or a Git connection, you are able to select GitLab, and now the default API endpoint is filled out in the API in the host name. Let me simply show it to you. Since we have this possibility here, once again, I will share my screen. So as soon as you create a new Git connection, you can select a provider, which is GitLab, and this is the default API endpoint. If you host a local one, you can simply change the URL in here and it should work. Make sure you don't add any slashes or and use the FQDN, so the full qualified domain name, to make sure that it is can be called from JobRouter web and the services server, just because on the one hand, we are calling the GitLab API via HTTP from the PHP side from JobRouter as well as from the services. So make sure both servers can reach this URL, so we are able to use full functionality of the Git integration. All right, There was a second one for me, I guess.
Exactly.
Does the Microsoft Graph API works only for mailbox functionality? Is there a possibility to make requests to Azure Microsoft using it directly from JobRouter? This is a very generic question because the Graph API is huge. Like you can do pretty much everything in the Microsoft world with the Graph API. We are using the Graph API on different locations in JobRouter, like for example in JobStart for the mailboxes. There are 2 to 3 more other stations as well. We're currently, for example, working for a Teams integration, which is also using the Graph API. Also, our integration with SharePoint is also using the Graph API. So as you can see, there are multiple possibilities using the Graph API. If you have a specific idea on how to use the Graph API or what those generic API calls would look like, please let us know. Please use the feature idea board in the portal and let us know what you want to achieve using the Graph API so we can work together on finding the solution.
Perfect. One last question that is very generic too, and I'm not sure if you can help out here. Are there any updates on JobRouter viewers as a generic question?
I would guess the viewer means the JobRouter Viewer 2 and JobRouter Viewer 1, probably. If so, I will just simply answer with there are no major updates or just probably bug fixes, but no feature updates for the viewers.
Perfect. So I think that's all for the moment. I will give everybody 1 or 2 more minutes if there are any more questions. Otherwise, it's only for us to thank you all for taking part in today's webinar. We hope you enjoyed it and we had some interesting updates for you. And we wish you all a happy lunch break and a nice weekend afterwards. And see you soon, talk to you soon on the next webinars or the next JobRouter Live events. And have a nice day. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.